going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Believe Fantasy Football Show. I'm Michael Fabiano, your friendly neighborhood fantasy analyst, and look who's with us today. Hey, I got a surprise for you all. It's our pal, the great actor, James Roday Rodriguez. You know him from Psyched. You know him from A Million Little Things. You know him from Buddy Games Spring Awakening. By the way, I watched the preview to that. There's some nice eye candy going on in there, and I'm not just talking about you, James. What's up, buddy?
I can't complain. We're all alive. We're here, and football is in full stream. So
it is. You are a Titans fan, as people can see from the lid you got there on your head. We're going to talk about the Titans a little bit later on in the show, but we're going to start off with this upcoming week. James is a big fantasy football guy. I think he's playing in more leagues this year than he's ever played in before, so he's dug in. He's dug in. We may as well just call him an analyst because that's the role that he's going to play, at least for the next 30 minutes. We got 6 teams off this week, including your beloved Titans and my beloved Dallas Cowboys, Carolina, Cincinnati, Houston, and the Jets, all off this week. And we've got to start with the injuries. And we'll start at quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is hurt. We don't know if he's going to play on Thursday night. Anthony Richardson's out for the season. Justin Fields, I'm worried about, potentially could be out for a long time. Deshaun Watson, who the hell knows what's going on with that guy? Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo is, always hurt. And then Ryan Tannehill, to a lesser degree, also injured. He is on a bye this week. So do you have any of these guys on any of your teams? And are there any quarterbacks that you're pivoting to dealing with these injuries?
Well, as you well know, we both took Justin Fields in our NFFC main event where we're playing for Connor's care in pediatric cancer, which just feels unusually cruel to me that, we're out there trying to do something good and it somehow makes our karma worse. That doesn't make any sense.
Right? Yeah.
So we're both in tough shape because my backup was Anthony Richardson. The difference is I at least have some fab dollars, whereas you do not, because I think you were stuck with Kyler Murray as your backup. So it's a great question because I am either going to have to start Gardner Minshew, who I grabbed when Richardson went down. So I do have him. And then on the wire, it's basically one-stop shop, and that's Russell Wilson. So I can buy Russell Wilson or I can start Gardner Minshew. And that's a tough spot to be in. Fabs.
Yeah, I'd rather be where you are, though, bro.
Yeah.
So, full disclosure, NFFC, I did not realize that you cannot put in a $0 bid. I spent all my money, and I am now stuck because I have Fields out and Kyler's not going to be back this week. So, and I started the week in first place, so I'm not real thrilled. I feel terrible. Hopefully, I can at least try and weather the storm, and hopefully Fields or Kyler comes back soon. The running back position is even worse.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on with McCaffrey. Kyron Williams is going to be out now multiple games, and he's been a stud. David Montgomery is going to be out multiple games. He's been a stud. We don't know if Aaron Jones is coming back this week. Please let Aaron Jones come back this week. Roshan Johnson as a backup option. We don't even know if he's going to be back for the Bears this week. Jeff Wilson Jr., and I didn't even mention some of the other players that have already missed time, like Saquon and Austin Eckler and Nick Chubb. It's been tough. And this week in particular, there are some running backs who have gone down that don't have like specific backups. Yeah. Now, being in so many leagues, which of these backup running backs were you targeting off the waiver wire? Like Zach Evans, Keontae Ingram. Which guys were you going after?
Well, I'll start by saying I was part of the swath of fantasy players who got duped last week by DeMercado.
Yeah.
That felt like something that could be nice. And then he had 2 touches or something. This week it's Zach Evans, right? He's the flavor of the week. Hopefully that works out because as far as we know, there's really nobody else on that roster. I think Royce Freeman might still be somehow hanging around.
And they signed Darrell Henderson. You remember him? Oh, and sure. They also signed Myles Gaskin. So, who knows? I think Evans is like the guy that you said. But I mean, I thought it was DeMercado until the end of last week, and then I was like, nope, it's Ingram. I went out and and picked him up in about as many leagues as possible. And you know what, buddy? That's been a problem this year because there hasn't been when running backs have gone down. A lot of times there hasn't been that one guy that you can go pick up. Like when Dalvin Cook would get hurt in Minnesota, we knew it was Alexander Madison. Like we knew that.
Yeah, it was
And
mathematical.
it's not like that now. With the guys who've gotten hurt, Arizona, it was Keontae Ingram, but he didn't get a ton of touches. And Damian Williams, who they grabbed off the practice squad, got more touches than DeMarcado, who played the most snaps but didn't touch the ball very much.
Yeah,
And
it's
now you got to
crazy.
deal with the Rams with four sort of unspectacular running backs behind Kyron Williams. And remember, Ronnie Rivers got hurt too. That's why we're not picking up Ronnie Rivers, because he's not going to play either.
I mean, I guess
It
one way you could look at it is that with 6 buys, um, chances are you're going to have to throw a dart or start somebody in a committee anyway. So if you get Zach Evans and he doesn't do what you expected him to do, like who are your other options, right? Like honestly, you might as well throw the
Yeah.
dart. I think Dante Foreman is a pretty good. Is a pretty good lock, at least while Roshan is hurt,
Mm-hmm.
to get most of the work in Chicago. So if that's a guy who's still out there, he's probably not in deeper leagues, but I would pounce on him, especially now
So
that there's no Justin Fields.
yeah, and the matchup's good against the Raiders. So I'm in a guillotine league. You know about the guillotine leagues.
Yeah, week 3, I was beheaded by less than a point, less than 1 point.
I'm doing pretty well, and then I looked at my roster for this week. I have Derrick Henry,
Ouch.
Joe Burrow, Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson. I'm not done. Joe Mixon,
Oh boy.
all on buys. So I am starting Kirk Cousins, Michael Wilson, and Deontay Foreman, and I am praying that I don't finish in last because I feel like I got a shot. But Bimageddon will hit us, and in that case where I have a lot of, Bengals and Jets. Oh man, and King Henry,
There's got
rough.
to be at least one other team in that league that's feeling the same way you are. So
Yeah, let's hope
good
so.
luck to you, man.
I'm gonna need it. I'm gonna need it. Jaguars Saints Thursday night football. The Saints are a 1 point favorite at home. The over under right now is 40. The money line, the Jags at even money at plus 100. The Saints are at minus 120. A couple of wagering notes, if you like to throw down a few beans on the games. The Jaguars 4-3 against the spread in their last 7 Thursday night games. 5 of those games have gone under. Saints 4-5 against the spread in their last 9 Thursday night games. 7 of those games went under. So there's a little bit of a trend there. Jags are 7-11 against the spread in 19 road games with Trevor Lawrence under center. I don't know that I love this game one way or another in terms of a favorite. Uh, I don't know if Lawrence is playing. We hope that he is, because if he doesn't play, it's going to be CJ Beathard, and it's going to be another awful Thursday night game. It might still be awful, but the under seems to be trending in the direction that you may want to take a shot on that.
I would 100% throw down money on the under. The outcome, I think, is too tough to call. These Thursday night games are crazy, like you said, and both of those teams have been pretty inconsistent. I mean, the Saints. I probably trust the Saints defense the most
Yeah.
out of any team's phase,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's Trevor Lawrence or not. 'Cause let's be honest, even when Trevor's been in there, it's not like he's lighting it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. He
yeah,
has not. He has not lived up to expectations for sure. From a fantasy perspective, I think he's had one game over 17 points, and that's it. And we all thought he was going to have a better year than he did last year, and that did not happen. For the Jaguars, the players that you're going to want in your lineup, obviously Travis Etienne. Calvin Ridley is not a great matchup. I'm still going to play him. Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram's been quietly solid every single week. If Lawrence plays, if you're in a 2 QB league, you probably got to play him. If not, I mean, the Saints have allowed the 7th fewest points to quarterbacks this year, and the position has averaged 12 points per game in New Orleans since last year. So this is a tough defense. So Lawrence, even if he plays, may not give you a whole lot of fantasy love. In terms of Ridley and Kirk, Saints have allowed the 13th fewest points to wide receivers. I mean, there's not really much there except for hopefully Ridley gets into the end zone. Christian Kirk's actually been the better of the two backs. For the Saints, the two guys who I would say are must starts are Kamara and Olave, although Jamal Williams is supposed to be back. So it's going to be interesting, James, to see how he affects Kamara's touch share.
well, he'll certainly still short yardage goal line stuff. One would think.
And yeah, that's not ideal because Kamara's
Yeah.
been pretty good since he's been back. Derek Carr, 2 QB league guy. That's it. The Jaguars allowed the 10th most points to quarterbacks. 7 home quarterbacks have scored 17 plus points against the Jags since last year, including 6 who've gone over 20. But I don't trust Derek Carr. I just don't in this game. Again, unless I'm in a 2 QB league, I'm going to keep him on my bench or I'm desperate. And, Olave, Michael Thomas. Olave, obviously a guy you're going to play. Michael Thomas, probably in the flex conversation, I would guess, this week, right?
Yeah, that's on a 16 bye week. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not sitting those guys. I was watching Red Zone last week, and I saw Derek Carr like take a 3-step drop and then just throw the ball as hard as he possibly could, just up for grabs, hoping that I think Shaheed could come down with it. And I was like, oh wow, because this wasn't a Hail Mary. They weren't at midfield, and that ball traveled. I want to say 47 yards in the
Okay.
air. And it was like, this is it. This is everything he had. Like his arm might as well have come off as he threw it. And I was like, wow, what an interesting reveal. Derek Carr just threw the ball as hard as he possibly could, and it went about 45 yards. Like
Yeah,
that's where
not
we are
exactly,
with Derek Carr.
not exactly a downfield pat. Yeah, but the good news has been he's a check down quarterback, and Alvin Kamara's been getting targeted a
Yeah.
ton. And that was where Kamara had really gotten hurt the last like couple of years without Breeze, is because Jameis or Dalton, like they would take the ball downfield and they weren't checking down to Kamara. Carr's doing it. I mean, what did he have? 13 catches in his first game. That was insane. So let's hope that continues. But Jamal Williams coming back, that's going to be interesting to see how he affects Kamara's touch share in this one. Real quick, player props. Jen Piacenti, the princess of props. She likes Kamara over 29 and a half receiving yards. She likes Olave longest catch over 23 and a half yards and a rushing touchdown for Travis Etienne at even money. Now, because we've got our pal James Roday here with us, we're going to play a little game of psyched or not psyched. You get it?
I do. I see what you did
You get
there.
it? And my guess is that this is not the first time that someone has come up with this very generically named segment for you.
It's all right. It's all right, pal.
So, because James Roday may as well be a fantasy analyst with how many leagues that he's playing in, I'm going to give you a name, and you're going to tell me whether or not you are psyched for that player this week or for the rest of the season, or not psyched. And some of
Okay.
these players may or may not be on some of your fantasy teams, James.
Well,
So let's
pretty much
start
have
things off
everybody. Yeah.
with Kirk Cousins. Psyched or not psyched?
I'm not psyched. Not until Jefferson comes back. I think we've now seen who Kirk Cousins is without Jefferson, and it's not pretty. Um, I mean, for all of the goodwill that he earned by coming off as a good dude and quarterback and being a leader of men, when he doesn't have arguably the best football player in the NFL on the field with him, he's not doing much. So I'm gonna have to say not psyched.
The only way Cousins has a good game on Monday night is if it's garbage time. The Niners are boat racing him, and he has to throw the ball a ton in the second half. It's a home game. He's been good at home. Like I'm forced to start him this week, but I think you're 100% right until JJ comes back, and there's a chance he might not. And I don't want to like sound super pessimistic about this, but if he's out the full 6 weeks and the Vikings are not in playoff contention once he comes back, or is eligible to come back, will he come back? I don't know.
I would imagine he will want to come back.
Yeah,
He strikes me as a hardcore competitor who, hey man, you're paying me to play football. Let me play football. But I hear you, man. If I'm the Vikings, he is he is everything to me. So
yeah, yep. All right, next up, you mentioned Russell Wilson as a player that you may have to pick up off the waiver wire and play. Russell actually has not been bad this year. Like last week was awful. I get it. It was just an absolute disaster. But overall, he has been a pretty good fantasy quarterback. He's got Green Bay this week. Psyched or not psyched?
uh, I would say very slightly psyched for this week, not psyched for the rest of the season. I have a feeling that they're going to deal away at least one of his weapons, if not more. who knows
Agreed.
who Russell's throwing to after the trade deadline. Uh, it's ugly in Denver, and I think they've probably got their eyes set on the draft and next season. I wouldn't even be shocked if at some point Peyton benches Russ to see what he's got in Jarrett Stidham, who he seems very excited about when he signed him. So all that adds up to a not psyched, Fabs.
All right. Yeah, Marvin Mims would be a player I'd be picking up off the waiver wire as a speculative ad because if Judy and or Sutton get traded, he's going to end up playing a bigger role in that offense down the stretch. This one is near and dear to your heart, my friend.
Yeah.
He's been very up and down this year. Derrick Henry, psyched or not psyched?
I
Rest of
can
the
be
season.
objective. Look, when Derrick Henry has more than 20 carries, the Titans win, A, and the numbers look pretty good, B. That obviously has a lot to do with game script, so I would not be surprised if he continues to do what he's been doing to fantasy managers, which is good game, nothing, good game, nothing, good game, nothing to the finish line. So you want him those weeks, when he's giving you 100 yards and punching in a couple touchdowns. You don't want him in the weeks that he's not. So I'm going to say a lukewarm psych because I do think more of those games are coming, but you're not ever going to know when, and it's hard to win a league. When your RB1 is only good half the time.
Yeah. But remember, not one, but two of his games in the fantasy playoffs are against Houston. And he owns Houston. He
That's true.
owns Houston. So
Like
that's
stupid numbers. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, his numbers are insane. All right, next up, a player who's on one of your fantasy football teams. Jonathan Taylor. Psyched or not psyched?
Wow, man. I mean, he is the water cooler talk of the whole industry right now, isn't he? I would say psyched based on pedigree and the money that they gave him, and the fact that he should be rounding into form with each successive week. But there's this other guy in that backfield who doesn't seem like he's ready to give up the rock because he's probably playing for some money himself. So I'll say psyched with the caveat that we might not be getting starters touches from Jonathan Taylor for a minute. But I think Jonathan Taylor, even in a two-back committee, if he's getting 15 touches a game, could still make some. He could still perform pretty well.
Yeah, I think you'll see Taylor overtake Moss in terms of the touches this upcoming week, but the matchup's really bad against the Browns. You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see Moss get traded at the deadline, and so we don't have to worry about it anymore. And put Moss someplace where, because he's a free agent next year, let him
Yeah,
go someplace where he's going to end up, having a bigger role. I'm selfish. I want one guy to get all the carries on every team, so that would be ideal. Next up, and this one here has hurt me. I've got this wide receiver in a couple of leagues, and in the preseason, I don't know if you remember, but this was the concern for me. Jimmy Garoppolo is about as durable as a house of cards in a hurricane. He's hurt again. Devontae Adams has had two stinkers in a row. And if you listen to him, he did an interview recently where he's like, I'm not real happy because my numbers have not been good. And the Raiders have won the last couple of games. And he's like, I'm more about the numbers. Like, obviously, he doesn't. It's been a weird marriage ever since he went to Vegas outside of the whole Derek Carr connection. And clearly he's not there anymore. But Devontae Adams, two straight stink bombs. You could be getting Brian Hoyer under center this week. Psyched or not psyched for Devontae Adams?
I'm not psyched. I'd move him if you could, but the truth is, you probably should have moved him 2 weeks ago and sold as high as humanly possible because I don't think it's going to be great down the stretch for Devontae. It feels like Jacoby Myers fits that McDaniel's offense a little bit better anyway, and with the uncertainty at quarterback, he's not. Unfortunately, Devontae's also a little bit older, right? Like he's not a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase, who's doesn't matter who's back there, just throw me the damn ball. I'm not sure that's Devontae anymore. So I think there are a couple things that he sort of needed to fall right for him to continue to be what we think or what we thought he was, and those things aren't there. So I'm going to say sadly, because I do like the player, not psyched.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not thrilled, and as you said, I think the next big game Devontae has, I'm going to try to move him, because it's not even about him; it's about Garoppolo.
Yeah.
I mean, the one game that Aiden O'Connell played, Adam still had a decent game, but Garoppolo is just, I mean, the guy's made of paper, so he just can't stay healthy. Another Titan,
Okay.
because you love them, and I think you know where I'm going to go here. Psyched or not psyched on Nuke Hopkins?
This one's interesting because I think I can still say psych depending on what your expectations were and are moving forward. If he's your wide receiver 1 or 2, you're not psyched.
Yeah,
If you're looking at him as your wide receiver 3 or a weekly flex, I think in a PPR league you can still be psyched because nobody else is catching the ball in that offense, and I mean nobody else. Tajay Spears will get 3 catches a game. Everything else is going Nuke's way. And because they're not very good, and they're probably going to have to throw the ball a lot in the second half of games, I could see people, being pretty stoked with their 7 for 80 type games for Nuke moving forward. He gets you 12 to 15 points every week. I'm going to say psyched.
I'm surprised, but I have my fingers crossed that you are right because I've got some shares of Nuke Hopkins, and last week was not good at all. Do
No.
you feel psyched if Tannehill's not the quarterback of the Titans? Because Malik Willis scares me to the bone when it comes to every pass catcher in Tennessee.
If it's Malik Willis, I'm not psyched about anybody.
Exactly.
If it's Will Levis, we have to wait and see because we just didn't get to put eyes on him in the preseason. But he's a guy that can throw the ball. And he's going to want to show everybody that he can throw the ball. I think he has a gunslinger mentality. He's got a cannon for an arm. And that could be fun to watch, along with probably a bunch of interceptions.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to see Levis in there if it's not Tannehill. We'll find out after the bye week. Uh, Two tight ends here,
Yeah.
and one of them's driving me nuts. But I guess I kind of expected it, and that's George Kittle. George Kittle either scores 3 touchdowns or he has 1 point. And more often than not, it's a single digit performance from George Kittle. Rest of season, George Kittle, psyched or not psyched?
I have to say, not psyched. I just think there's too many mouths to feed and too many ways for that team to win games. I also don't think George Kittle, and this is to his credit in real football, gives a damn about his numbers. He really does seem like one of those guys who's just like, whatever I got to do to help the team win. You want me to go out and play every down and just block? That's what I'll do. But the days of drafting George Kittle and starting him every week and not having to think about it are definitely over. I have him in that NFFC league, and I've been starting Cole Kmet over him every week, if you can believe that. And with the exception of the 1 week that he went off, it's been the right choice. Like Kmet has outperformed him. So
Yep.
that's where we are with George Kittle. So bye week fill in, or if your other guy gets hurt, but other than that, not psyched.
Last one here in what has been an exhilarating edition of Psyched or Not Psyched.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle
Because of me,
Pitts.
because I'm bringing so much to the table.
Oh, no, well, no, well, exactly. Listen, man, I'm just here living in your world, my friend. Uh, Kyle Pitts has had 2 straight good games. Does that make you more optimistic for the rest of the season? Are you psyched or not psyched about Kyle Pitts, or would you trade him and sell him high right now?
I would trade him right now while we're talking, because not only has he not had
Let me
two,
try to trade him here.
yeah, not only has he not had two good games in a row since he's been in the league, but he's also got another guy playing the same position as him in that offense who's getting almost as much attention as he is. So
Yeah.
he's basically splitting reps and splitting targets with Jonnu Smith. And he's Kyle Pitts, who's been inconsistent and made us crazy for the last 2 seasons. I think if you drafted Pitts coming into this year, you probably should have gotten somebody else anyway. Um, so hopefully people did that. If they pushed all their chips into the middle with just Kyle Pitts, well, that's your bed, and now you got to lie on it. So I wouldn't say I'm psyched. I would say I'm cautiously optimistic that he could at least contribute something. But not what we were hoping for. When
Now's the time to trade him away. I kind of agree with you
uh,
there. All right, let's get into some starts and sits, and James is going to put on his analyst cap here. Any of these that you like, dislike, you let me know.
all
I'm
right,
going to go through them. We're going to start at the quarterback position. I'm starting Tua this week against the Eagles. I know it's the Eagles defense. Guys, they're not good against quarterbacks. 19 plus points to 3 different quarterbacks allowed this year. Brock Purdy, who I told you to play, not play last week. I love him on Monday night against the Vikings. He is a solid play. Jordan Love, who was awful before the bye week, don't care. He's got the Broncos this week. I'm going to play him. Sam Howell has hit 18 plus points in 3 straight games and 4 of 5. He's got the Giants this week in Jersey. I'm going to play Howell. And I know Geno Smith has been bad this year, but he's got Arizona, 6 teams on a bye. I don't mind Geno Smith this week. Your thoughts on that group?
I agree with everything Fab said. He's a professional. He's he is a polished professional, and I think you can take all that to the bank. The one thing I will say is that Sam Howell, I think, will manage to give you good numbers, but also take 7 more sacks.
Yeah, yeah, he's him and the Giants quarterbacks have been tortured by poor offensive line play. Now the sits.
Thibodeau might be a dart to throw on a over half a sack prop if it's out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, no question. All right, sit 'em quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, who James has already said he's not psyched about against the Niners, and this one here we can talk about. But Jared Goff. Jared Goff had one good game on the road. He was great last week. I give him all the credit in the world. Still, this is a guy who is averaging fewer than 15 fantasy points in road games dating back to last year. The Ravens have not given up more than 15.4 points to a quarterback this season. So I'm a little wary about Jared Goff. Russell, I think Russell's a startable guy as a QB1, a low QB1, but Green Bay's given up very few points to quarterbacks. In fact, one has beaten them for more than 14 and a half points. So they haven't played a lot of great quarterbacks. So I think you got to keep that in the back of your mind. Russell's probably still going to be in a lot of lineups. And then there's just nothing out there for me to write about. I mean, Desmond Ritter, he had a good game 2 weeks ago. He was decent last week, but people are going to have to play him. Not a great matchup against the Bucks. But I want your take on Goff. Like, you know me, I'm traditionally like a trends guy. Look at the stats, obviously, but I also am superstitious. And and Jared Goff is a guy who, yeah, he had a good game last week, and people may have to play him because we're in Bimageddon. But like, what are your thoughts on Goff on the road? Because typically he just doesn't get the job done.
I think trends exist for a reason. I mean, those are the kind of things that we have to look at in fantasy football. All we can do is make educated guesses, right? But when you have all that information pointing at one outcome, you have to take it seriously. And again, I don't think anybody drafted Jared Goff as their QB1 in a one quarterback league. If it's a flex and he's your number 2 guy, well, you've been playing him anyway.
Yep.
And if it's a bye week, I could totally see him, having to fill in for a week for people. But for the most part, he's probably on your bench if you've drafted well and you have a pretty good team. So this is a 1 week only type of situation because your other guy might be on a bye.
Yep. Yeah. Bad matchup, but again, sometimes those of us who may not have quarterback depth have to go in a direction we don't want to, and that goes across the board for every position when you've got injuries and 6 teams off. Let's go to the running backs. Aaron Jones is low hanging fruit, but I don't care. He's playing the Broncos, and I don't have a lot of running backs to choose from as it pertains to this column this week. If he comes back, he's a obvious must start. Isaiah Pacheco has taken over as the lead back in Kansas City. Good matchup against the Lightning Bolts this week. They've given up 13 plus fantasy points to 5 running backs, including 4 with over 17. DeAndre Swift's another really good play who's become quite obvious. Brian Robinson, who I didn't like last week, and he had nothing on the ground, but he caught a touchdown pass, which kind of saved his fantasy bacon. But the matchup's really good against the Giants this week. I'm playing him. If Roshan plays against the Raiders, I'm playing him. And if he doesn't, and it's Deontay Foreman, I can see flexing Deontay Foreman this week, James. What do you think?
Agreed across the boards. The Philly situation has been kind of fascinating to me. We were all trying to sort of guess during the preseason what the pecking order was going to be. For a hot second, Kenny Gainwell was like the man.
Yep.
And then Swift came in the week that Gainwell was hurt, said, "Nah, this is my backfield." Even though I get hurt every game too, but he's managed to stay healthy, and that's, I think, probably the biggest surprise for me. We've never seen a run of health like this for DeAndre Swift before, and neither had the Lions, which is probably why they sent him sent him packing. But don't forget, they still have Rashad Penny in that backfield,
Who?
who's not even suiting up. But if something were to happen to DeAndre, and of course we never wish that on anyone, there's a guy who averages over 5 yards a carry, standing on the sidelines in that offense. Which like you said, in a league where there's so many injuries and buys and all this craziness, it's just kind of wild to me that the Eagles are just sitting on a guy who's been that productive on a per carry basis, not trying to trade him, not doing anything with him. Just
But that's the thing. I would love to see him trade him at the deadline. Just like Zach Moss, I'd love to see him get traded. I'd love to see Penny get traded too. I don't know if that's going to happen. Running backs to sit, I can't even say sit. It's like basically start and pray because you're stuck with these guys. Like Najee Harris has been an abject disaster, 6.7 points per game. Rams, you probably got to play him. You don't have to like it. Alexander Madison, Niners, potentially a negative game script on Monday night. I know they got waxed by the Browns running backs last week. I don't think that's going to be the case for Madison. Start him and pray. Rashad White getting a lot of touches, getting a lot of snaps, not scoring a lot of fantasy points. Atlanta has not allowed a rushing touchdown this year to a running back. Start him and pray. Zach Moss, who's been fantastic. I can't take anything away from Zach Moss. The Browns defense, only Christian McCaffrey has had a really good game against them this year. That's it. And he had 14 points. It was like the lowest output of his season. Of course, he did get hurt. Start him and pray for Zach Moss, and then Gus Edwards. If you can sit him, I'd sit him against Detroit. The Lions have given up the fewest yards to running backs on the ground this year. That Lions defense is really good against the run. James, any thoughts on those players?
No, you nailed it. I guess the only thing that might be worth mentioning is the kid, Keaton Mitchell, did get activated
Yeah.
last week. Didn't touch the ball, but he could be sort of a Tajay Spears type in that offense. He's got a lot of speed, but he's undersized, and it'd be interesting to see if they use him at all this week.
Yep. Moving on to the wide receivers, Brandon Ayuk is a must start. He's my start of the week. Debo's banged up. He's the better wide receiver. I mean, Ayuk is, and the matchup's really good against Minnesota. Devontae Smith has been a dud. Really, in the last like 3-4 weeks, it's been awful. Fewer than 10 points 3 times, 1.6 points in one game. But this is the week he breaks out, guys. This is going to be a high scoring game. The total opened at 53. This is going to be fun. I think Devontae Smith breaks out this week of that slump. Tyler Lockett against the Cardinals. Tyler Lockett has scored 15 plus points in 5 of his last 6 games against Arizona, including a 53-point performance a few years back. Keep that in mind. Hollywood Brown against Seattle. Love him. Love the matchup. Zay Flowers against the Lions. Don't love the Ravens ground assets. Love the air asset that they have in Zay Flowers. Any thoughts on those players, James? Anybody you like, dislike? And what is your thought on Zay Flowers during his rookie year? Because he hasn't been spectacular, but he's been pretty good, giving you right around 12 points per game.
I think he's been as good as Lamar Jackson throwing the ball has allowed him to be. I think he's showed plenty of potential, and if you could imagine him in a different offense with a different quarterback, it'd be a lot more exciting. But it's weird, man. I mean, I feel like Lamar has regressed as a passer, even though he has an offensive coordinator who was supposed to come in and open things up and make it more of a passing offense. It's been very strange, very antithetical to everything that we heard. He still doesn't like to throw outside the hashes. Those out routes are just not something that he's willing to do. And it limits the route tree for everyone who plays receiver on that team. I mean, when's the last time you heard Rashad Bateman's name, like,
Yeah.
at all?
Or OBJ. I mean,
OBJ
he's
is
done.
doing nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
he had weapons coming into the season, and it's not materializing. So kind of a head scratcher in
Yep.
Baltimore. And then I'll say this about Devontae Smith: he was doing great until AJ got up in his boy's grill and said, "Yo, man, you need to throw me the ball more." and then,
Yeah, that's right.
that was the narrative that sort of led to Devontae becoming invisible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, last season we saw there's enough to go around for both of these guys. They were both in the top 12. So, but I do think Devontae, you want to talk about a great wide receiver matchup. Tyreek and Jalen, and of course, Jalen went to Alabama against AJ and Devontae, who went to Alabama. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch. I can't wait. And this slate of games this week is trash. I'm sorry, NFL. This slate of games is awful, and with all the injuries, like this is the Sunday, James, where like if you're one of those fans who disappears from your significant other every Sunday, this might be the weekend to say, "Hey, let's hang out until four o'clock," and then you've got Chiefs, Chargers, then you got Dolphins, and you've got Eagles, right? I mean, so like
Sneaky
maybe you
clever.
take your significant other to like brunch or something like that. There's not a lot of great games this week.
Yeah.
Um, wide receivers that you sit again, and I think I have to also say this is probably start and pray. Michael Pittman, big game last week. Told you to play him. Browns defense has given up a big game to one wide receiver this year. That's it, just one. Now it's George Pickens, who, by the way, I don't like this week against the Rams, especially if Deontay Johnson is back, and Deontay Johnson is trending towards coming back. Jerry Jeudy, I want him to get traded because I want to change the scenery. I don't love the matchup against the Green Bay Packers this weekend. Kendrick Bourne had a big game last week, but Kendrick is historically a guy who'll have a big game and then fall off the face of the earth. And he's got Buffalo this week, so I'm not in love with Kendrick Bourne. And Curtis Samuel is a player that I would pick up. 14 plus points in 3 straight games, but I kind of feel like the law of averages is going to catch up with him this week. And if the Giants defense played as well last week against the Bills, if they do that again this week, I think Curtis Samuel may disappoint for fantasy managers.
Amen. Second all of that. I mean, I guess the one thing Samuel has going for him is that he's the check down guy,
Yeah.
as opposed to McLaren and the ghost of Jahan Dotson.
We
You have
all
to
loved
start.
him,
You
right?
have to
And it just
start
hasn't
somebody.
happened.
Maybe Samuel's your best bet, but yeah, you don't feel great about it.
Finally, let's wrap it up with the tight ends. Real quick, I'm going to go through these. Kyle Pitts, I think you got to start him while he's hot or trade him. Luke Musgrave's got a good matchup against the Broncos. Another rookie, Michael Mayer, is getting more involved in the offense in Las Vegas. Bears defense, 4 tight ends have scored over 10 points against them. So you could play him. And remember, Pat Freiermuth is back this week, and the matchup's really good against the Rams. He got dropped in a couple of my leagues. I was able to pick him up. The sit-em tight ends, Zach Ertz against Seattle. He has seen his snaps drop in 3 straight games. Hunter Henry has disappeared from the stat sheets the last few weeks. Tyler Higbee has 6 targets since Cooper Kupp came back, so that's not good for him. And I've got Logan Thomas on the sit-em list just because I'm so pissed that he was my start of the week last week and he was brutal. So it's kind of one of those like rage sit-em situations. He's probably still a low tight end 1 at a very thin position. Now, let's get to our matchup this week. James Roday and I are both in the Sports Illustrated Invitational. I sit atop the standings at 6-0. James is in second place at 5-1, doing a very stellar job. This week, we play for all the marbles, at least as it pertains to being the first place team. I'm going to go through my roster real quick, and I got to tell you, you got an advantage this week, my brother. Because
I was going to do you a favor, and so that you didn't have to be the guy that like makes excuses for his own team, and I was going to do it. I was going to do it for you and say that you're in some quarterback trouble in a Superflex league for sure.
Yes, I am. Dak's not playing. I've got Watson in my lineup right now, and I don't know if he's going to play. I've got Mac Jones on my bench, and I don't even want to start him, even if it's just one quarterback that I have to start. The waiver wire is empty. I am in trouble this week. I think I am going to lose the undefeated streak to James. I've got Jacobs and Swift at running back. Jacobs has been better lately. Swift's been very good. Pittman, who I don't love this week, I'm playing him because I have Jamar Chase on a bye. I got McLaurin in the lineup this week. I've got Kamara, who's going on Thursday night. Madison, who I don't love. I have to play him based on what I have on my roster right now. I need Jake Elliott and the Seahawks defense to step up. I need my kicker and my defense to step up this week if I'm going to try and beat James. James, go through your roster too. And I mean, you have David Montgomery who's banged up right now, so you're not at full strength either. But I think you've got the better roster for the week.
I'm not, but I at least have two healthy quarterbacks, so that gives me a decided advantage. I've had Kirk Cousins and Sam Howell all season. They've been doing their thing. We talked about Cousins without Justin Jefferson. That's no longer exciting, but hopefully there's a floor there. I've got Diggs, who's been money. Metcalf is a little banged up, but he's been questionable the last 4 weeks, and he's playing through that injury. You mentioned not minding Geno Smith this week, so hopefully I get wide receiver 2 value there. I made a trade with your partner in crime, Lindsey Rhodes, because I've been playing the waiver wire every week at tight end, and
That was a good trade.
Yeah, I figured it was time to just lock down somebody who I could start every week. So I have Evan Ingram, who is not blowing the roof off, but he's been consistent. So that's an upgrade.
You traded away Zach Moss to get Ingram.
I did. And the reason I traded away Zach Moss is because I also have Jonathan Taylor, and I didn't want the headache of having both those guys and not knowing which one to put in. So I figured I would take care of that and also bring in Evan Ingram. So I feel decent about that. Mostert has been a revelation without Ashan. So against the Eagles, I'm expecting he could be the high scorer on my team for the week.
All right, Tass, let's get you in here. What's your prediction on this one? And it's totally fine to pick against me because I'm picking against me this week. I'm in a lot of trouble. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick against you, Fabs. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
It's looking bleak for you, man. And
right, it looks like so based on the projections on Yahoo, James is about a 4-point favorite in this one, and I would argue that I would take James minus the points if I was a betting man in this one. I honestly, I may have to start Mac Jones. You may
have to start Mac Jones. Did you grab PJ?
No, I don't know. He's on the waiver wire. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to divulge anything because I'm playing against you. And sure. You know what? You're a smart fantasy manager. You may say, oh, Fabs is putting in a claim for this quarterback. I'm going to go in and block him. I'm not doing that. I love you to death. I'm not going to tell you what I'm trying to do. But if you look at the waiver wire, there is nothing. Yeah. There's nobody on that waiver wire who's guaranteed to start this week that's any good. And I'm not going with Tyler Bajan or whatever the hell his name is in Chicago. Forget that. Watch, he'll have like 302 touchdowns.
You know what? I'm not making any defensive wire moves, Fabs. You have my word on that.
I have put in a claim for a player.
Good.
Good. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you have Zamir White on your roster is an indicator of how thin the waiver wire must look.
And also, too, James has got a lead in points. So he's beaten me in points by about 27 points. So if you win this week, you're going to be in first place by yourself based on points. I am going to do my damnedest to try and beat you, but my quarterback situation is dire, as we saw from the graphic. So good luck, my friend. Enjoy the Titans not losing this week. I will enjoy the Cowboys not losing this week. Anything out there that you want the people to know about? Any projects that you're working on? Any movies upcoming that I could maybe do a cameo in? Like, what do we got going on? Because everybody wants me in a movie, that's for sure.
We got a whole lot of picketing still happening, and a whole lot of actors still fighting, for a better deal from the studios. So I was able to get back to work as a writer about a month back, so that's been cool. Fabs and I both love horror movies, and
I love them.
I am working on a horror project behind the keys, but as far as the stuff in front of the camera, it's absolutely bupkis for all of us, probably until after the holidays. So
yeah, I was actually talking to Scott Porter a few nights ago, and he was saying the same kind of thing. So hopefully you guys get what you deserve. You're tremendous. I could never do what you do. So
We need you to do what you do, Fabs.
I try, right, but
Count on you
again,
every
that
week.
doesn't mean I can't. That doesn't mean I can't, like, have a little cameo where maybe I'm
No,
like
it's
behind
not.
the scenes drinking a beer next to an attractive lady. I'm
We
fine with that.
all we all
Just don't give
remember
me
how
any
great
lines.
Bob Uecker was in Major League. He almost stole the movie.
All right, my brother, I love you, man. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Believe Fantasy Football Show. I will wish you good luck in our matchup. I don't think you're going to need it. I think you probably got this one wrapped up, but we shall see. And one more before we let you go. Best horror movie of all time is?
I reserve the right to change my answer the next time you ask me, but I'll say Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, that's a great one. I'm going to go with the original Halloween. But yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is fantastic. You are the best, my man. I will be talking to you soon. And everybody out there, make sure you keep plugging away the Believe Fantasy Football Show. Subscribe, like, do all that kind of stuff. And we will be posting all of our content on the artist formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. You'll be able to find us everywhere. Good luck in week 7. I know I'm going to need it. You're going to need it. Roday, not so much. We'll see you guys next Tuesday.